1.
Send me location. It's time for another 10-8 podcast. I, as always, am your humble servant, Zach, from Filthy Philadelphia. I am joined, as always, by John Boy in South Florida. John Boy, rate your excitement level right now, 1 to 1,000,000.
I'm breaking the 1,000,000 threshold, to be honest with you.
Easily.
Yeah, no, this is a big week. We had, 1 week of rest this past last week right here. So, big lead up, man. And I can't wait for this card.
This card is for the fans.
No,
this is it. This is what we play for, is cards like this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to a 10-8 round day one. Remy, you the man. He's a big supporter of the 10-8 round podcast. And I just want to give a shout out that we see you and we love you, Rem. Thanks for your support, bro.
Remy, 10-8 tips its hat to you. Thank you for the support. I got a shout out too. I got to shout out Lauren C in Philadelphia, who is a day one fan of the 10-8 podcast. Lauren C is exactly our demographic because she has never watched a single bout of mixed martial arts in her entire life. Everything she knows about this sport has come from you or I. So she is horribly misguided.
Wow. Yeah. I want to apologize in advance, but
it's rough. It's rough out here, but she's a loyal fan. So we will tip our hats to Lauren C in Philadelphia. And now that we've taken care of the niceties here. Oh, and by the way, because I've been remiss, because you've been remiss, because, our fans range from wildly intelligent like Remy and Lauren C to a couple of mouth breathers out there. So if you're listening right now and you haven't smashed that like and subscribe, let me ask you, what are you doing? What are you doing? Hit the like and subscribe. Start sharing it. Tell your friends. Tell your mother. Tell your godmother. Tell the UPS guy. 10-8 round is for everybody. That's what we're out here doing. And let me also mention, I don't know if you noticed, John Boy, this is a new Mikoto brand sweatshirt I'm wearing tonight.
Oh, wow.
They dropped a fresh one. It's comfy as all hell. Makes me look about 30 pounds skinnier. So I'm about that life because the boy likes to eat. Mikoto coming through fresh to death as always for the fight fans. Love it.
It's a beaut.
John, are there fights this weekend? I don't remember.
Yeah, no. We'd be remiss to not, blow up how big of a card that this really is right now. For the diehard MMA fans, this might be one of the best, UFC cards I've honestly ever seen put together. Definitely, I think the best card so far of the year. And one little thing I'd like to throw in there is I will be in attendance in Jacksonville this weekend. Yes, I will be. So I have a little bit slightly more invested this weekend. So hopefully the picks are on par so people don't have to hear me drunk screaming too much in Jacksonville. But, it's what I do it for.
Well, look, I don't want the fans, our millions of fans listening to this, to be too jealous. But I will be watching the card from sunny Lancaster, Pennsylvania this weekend. I'm talking inside of a rundown Holiday Inn.
Wow.
Surrounded by the Amish, probably by myself in a hotel room. So I ask the fans, control your jealousy.
I'll send you snaps. I got you.
Yeah, please send me snaps. I will send you back the same photo, which is, of course, this.
Beautiful.
That being said, I'm glad the 10-8 round is going to have a presence this weekend. Obviously, the fighters as well as the fans know us and love us. So I think it's going to be a calming presence for them to know that 10-8's here. 10-8's in attendance. We're ready to go. Let's get it. I mean, look, this is, this one, if you're a casual fan, look, we don't hate on the filthy casuals. We respect and love everybody on the 10-8 round. But if you're a casual, I feel like just watch this one quietly. This is for the true diehards. This is for the real fans. I mean, right off the bat, let's start at the top. Let's start at the main event. We got Alexander the Great Volkanovsky versus the Korean Zombie. This on its own is enough of a reason to tune into a card.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're talking about a guy who you could make the argument that he's the pound for pound best fighter right now in the world, that being Alexander Volkanovsky. The guy's on a 20 fight win streak. He hasn't lost a single fight in the UFC. He hasn't lost since 2013, where he was fighting up a weight division. I believe he was actually up 2 weight divisions. He was fighting at 170, and that's his only loss in his MMA career. And he's taking on a fan favorite guy in the Korean Zombie, who is also really no joke. You're talking about, a guy who's been at the top of the division for a really long time, and he's always kind of been going for that title shot. He did lose to Jose Aldo for his first title shot attempt, but he has a shot at redemption here. And this is a tough test, though. Tough test.
It is worth noting that the Korean Zombie lost to Jose Aldo in the same year that Alexander Volkanovsky lost to Corey Nelson.
Yeah.
And if you're asking yourself, who's Corey Nelson? I don't know. I've never heard of this person in my life. I don't know who that is.
No.
Who's not in the UFC. I can tell you that much. No. Yeah. So you got Volkanovski's 23-1, 33 years old. The Korean Zombie is 17-6, I believe. 35 years old. Obviously, the Korean Zombie, having been at the top of the division, also has a huge gap in his resume from when he was called home to serve in the military in his native South Korea. I believe he was Republic of Korea or ROK Marine, which I have heard from some reputable sources are some of the scariest people you will ever have the misfortune of coming across. And yeah, if you look at the Korean Zombie, I mean, his last fight was a decision win over Dan Ige, who is as tough as they come. Before that, he lost the decision to T-City, who Volkanovski just beat by decision. Jose Aldo. And then honestly, the only other real notable loss on his record is to Yair Rodriguez. And I got to tell you, that is one of the fights that bothers me the most. That's one that keeps me up at night. And I'll say this, every fight we mention is about between legit guys this weekend, but the Korean Zombie has been one of my top 3 favorite fighters since probably like 2012. Yair Rodriguez keeps me up at night. He was winning that fight comfortably for 5 rounds. Yair Rodriguez sneezes and throws an elbow with 1 second on the clock in round 5 and knocks out the Korean Zombie, gets the knockout victory over him with what had to be the strangest elbow I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely brutal. It was like a Molly McCann, Luis Carolina-esque elbow where it just didn't see it coming, hit him at the perfect time, and it was lights out with 1 second remaining in the round. Latest knockout, latest finish in UFC history over the course of 5 rounds. That was a brutal loss for Zombie. But I mean, he's been on the bounce back since that fight. You mentioned the Ortega loss. That's really the only, I think, MMA math we should be doing because that was Volk's last fight. And I thought Ortega looked pretty good in the Volkanovski fight. So, he beat Zombie pretty thoroughly on the feet for 5 rounds, which really surprised me. I didn't see that coming. Ortega was an underdog going into that fight. So that's pretty telling, I think, of where Zombie's at. Do you have an idea of where you think that this fight is lined?
Look, on this podcast, I pick favorites and I don't pick favorites. And I know in my heart that Volkanovski is probably the favorite, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy that truth. So I reject it.
That's fair. Yeah, no, he's a minus 700 favorite. Okay. Ooh. So you're talking about a guy, you're going to have to lay $700 to win $100. So the general public are absolutely steaming this line. I think it opened at like minus 400 and it's almost doubled since that, which is crazy to me. I think Volkanovski, just by the resume, it'd be hard to not go with him here. The level of people that he's beaten, the same opponents that they have faced that are in common. All signs point to Volkanovski. I get why he's being bet, but to me, that number is outrageous. I'm not going to touch it because it's so high. And something inside of me wants a little bit of chaos to occur. And I don't know. I'm looking at that plus 500 on Korean Zombie, and maybe he can spring, a little craziness in Jacksonville this week.
Look, here's the thing. We're sitting here right now on a Wednesday night. I got a liquid death. I'm calm. I'm logical. And I know that logically, Volkanovsky is and should be the favorite. As soon as the Cranberries come on, as soon as I hear that opening guitar riff, all logic is leaving my body, and it is War Zombie until the end of that fight, without question. I am such a fan of the Korean Zombie, have been for just about a decade now. This guy is so insanely tough, so insanely talented. And I got to tell you, I agree with you about that line being just completely insane. I think it's I think it baffles me a little bit that it's that steep of a line favoring Volkanovsky. I mean, listen, is Volkanovsky probably one of, if not the best pound for pound fighter in the world? Absolutely. But in the two fights with Holloway, you can't say that he smoked Max. You can't say that Max Holloway wasn't in those fights with him. And I think on the second fight between them, if you were watching at home, scoring this on, Verdict or whatever the fuck, you might have been able to score it Holloway's way with good conscience. You might have been able to sleep after scoring it for Max. So it's not that Volkanovsky is untouchable. It's not like he's walking on water. He's just a legitimately talented and tough fighter. But I mean, Korean Zombie is the guy to bring chaos to the cage, right? He's the guy who's going to bring that fight until somebody either pulls him off or wakes him up. So I get it. I know that Volkanovsky is a logical favorite. It wouldn't rattle my world if Zombie brought that chaos and maybe stole one here. And if the Zombie holds UFC gold, I am going to be insufferable on the next round of this podcast. I mean, that's right up there on my Mount Rushmore with Michael Chiesa.
Yeah, no, I mean, you brought up Holloway's fights being close. The thing with Holloway that's hard to compare is that Holloway is kind of in a league of his own as well. I feel like it's Volk, Holloway, and then just the rest of the division underneath them. There's that big of a gap in talent. We saw what Holloway did to Ortega. I mean, he broke the single strike record in a fight. It was one of the worst beatings I think I've seen a fighter take. But Ortega responded well. He came back and he strung some wins together. The one thing that I'll say that I thought that this was very interesting when I was, looking at some statistics, that Volkanovsky has the longest divisional fight time in UFC history for 145 pounds. So his average fight time is 17 minutes and 24 seconds. So, you're talking about a guy who he isn't really a potent finisher. And Zombie is a potent finisher. I mean, 14 of his 17 wins are by finish. The guy's first 8 fights in the UFC were bonuses. So he's like the definition of exciting. He brings it to fight. It's obvious why he's a fan favorite. So if there was one guy to throw a wrench in this entire thing, it really wouldn't surprise me too much if it was Korean Zombie. The line is getting way too out of hand for me to even touch Volk. So I'm going to wait for weigh-ins on Friday, and I might sprinkle a little bit of Korean Zombie.
So what you're saying is we got to watch the Twitter.
Yeah, Jay Sure Picks. You guys know the deal. I'll be posting after weigh-ins, and on Saturday I'll be there live. So the tweets are going to be out extra quick. I'm not going to be on that stream, so we're not going to have that 30-second delay. I'm going to be live. I'll be firing out live bets. This is the week to follow Jay Sure Picks, man. Because
now let me ask you this, Jay Sure Picks. When you're there live, you're going to be enjoying a couple Domestos. You're going to be having a couple Bud Heavies.
I mean, well, that goes without saying. I mean, let's be honest here.
Now let's give a fair and honest disclaimer then to the viewership. Couple Domestos in you. Are you going to be tweeting with your heart or with your mind?
There will be multiple beverages in me. I'm going to let the chopper sing, man. You know, if you see, one thing I want to say is if you like a pick and I like a different pick, you don't have to go with me. Always go with your gut. But if you're seeing something that I'm seeing and you're on the same page as me and we both feel that way, let the chopper sing, man. Unload. That's when you know to pull the trigger and make the bet. So if it lines up and it makes sense, go with it.
I mean, listen, you heard it here first. Let the chopper sing. I couldn't agree more. This does bring up, though, the perfect time for our new segment. Ooh. And the new segment is this, John. So I'm going to put you on notice now. There are two types of people in this world, right? Mm-hmm. There's the big dogs who go out on the hunt, and there's the pups who stay on the porch. Before we're done talking about this card, I want you to give me two bets. I want you to give me a bet for the pups who stay on the porch. That's the Jay sure thing. And I want you to give me one for the big dogs who are going to get out on a hunt. People who are feeling a little risky. People who just got paid and they got money burning a hole in their pocket, feeling a little spicy. So those are the two picks. I don't think we've hit it yet with our first fight. Maybe we have. You'll tell me when. But give me one for the pups and give me one for the big dogs this week.
Yeah, no, that I love that. I love that segment. And I will definitely, give you those picks, but I don't think we're there with fight one. We're going to go down to the rest of this stellar card and we're going to find an edge down there.
Well, as memory serves, there is another title fight, isn't there?
Yes.
Is Jermain Sterling and Petr Yan going to get back in there and do this once again? Illegal knees notwithstanding.
Yeah, man. These two guys are going to go in there and settle some unfinished business that they had in their first fight. If you haven't seen it, Jermain Sterling took a knee, which some people say wasn't as bad as he made it seem, and could no longer continue. Petr Yan seemingly pulling away in that fight, throws an illegal knee while the opponent was grounded. Fight was stopped, DQ'd, and here we are sitting on the rematch.
Yeah, look, to anybody, and I saw a lot of that criticism. And look, don't get me wrong, the memes were gold. Out of the first Sterling Yan fight, the memes were top notch. I'm hitting the microphone. They were so good. That being said, if you think Funkmaster Jermain Sterling was faking the funk, I would recommend that you find somebody that you trust and let them knee you in the face while you are on the ground. And after that, I want you to let the 10-8 know how that went when somebody needs you straight in your shit. Did you walk away? Were you ready to finish a title fight? Answer those questions honestly, either to us or to yourself. That being said, Petr Yan was clearly pulling away in that fight and was serving up a pretty hot and fresh meal to Jermain Sterling. And I thought looked like he was ready to run away with that fight. Jermain Sterling, 32 years old, 20-3, has won a lot of weird submission victories. Petr Yan, 29 years old, 16-2, has won in every way possible. His last loss, 2016, to Magomed Magomedov, who I believe was the fighter who favored Abe Lincoln a bit. Is that the one? Magomed's the one that looks like Abe Lincoln, right?
Yeah, that's Magomed Sharapov.
Am I confusing my Magomeds?
Yes, yeah. This Magomed Magomedov is currently a 145er or 135er in Bellator.
Ah, yes. Okay, I've confused my Magomeds, and that'll happen.
Yeah, no, there's enough of them to where I could see that coming into fruition for sure.
You got your Magomeds, you got your Nurmagomedovs. Here's one thing I know: they can all wrestle. Every one of them can wrestle, and one of them beat Petr Yan. That one doesn't look like Abe Lincoln. Big shout out to Lauren C., friend of the pod, who has a dark sexual fantasy about Abe Lincoln. Maybe that's why I was thinking about it. Wow. But either way, whether you're a Magomed or a Nurmagomedov, nobody's been beating Petr Yan lately.
Yeah, no, I mean, Peter Yan, you're talking about another guy who, if he wins this fight, you could potentially get into the mix of a top pound for pound guy in the world. He could be right up there. The thing that impressed me with Peter Yan is that he took the Corey Sandhagen fight. So he took another fight after this, and a guy in Corey Sandhagen who is without a doubt, a top 135 pounder in the world. And he beat him pretty convincingly over the course of 5 rounds. The one thing that it's the same problem that I had in the first fight is, I'm assuming you have an idea of who the favorite would be here based on last fight result.
I have to believe that Petr Yan is the favorite.
Yeah, he is the favorite, but he's minus 500.
That's steep.
I mean, people are coming out of the woodwork to bet these favorites because I haven't seen lines this juiced up in a very long time. Aljamain Sterling won 2 rounds in the first fight. I think he won the opening 2 rounds until his gas tank started to fade, and then Yan really got in cruise control and started to pull away. But I think that this fight could easily go 5 rounds. Maybe Yan finishes it in the championship rounds, but Aljamain Sterling plus 350, Petr Yan minus 500. It's wide, man.
That's a ridiculous line, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, look, absolutely, Petr Yan was pulling away in their last fight. Aljamain Sterling is a guy who also has a win over Corey Sandhagen and submitted him, has a win over Pedro Munoz, has a win over Jimmy Rivera, and has a knee bar submission over Cody Stamann. Yeah. Right? We don't see a ton of knee bars in the UFC. And what I'm trying to get at here is Aljamain Sterling. He's clearly not skipping jiu-jitsu class at Serra-Longo, right? He's there on Long Island. He's showing up to every Matt Serra grappling. He's at 101. He's at 201. He's doing live rounds. And that's a guy, right? You got a guy who's talented enough to get a knee bar, to have all the submissions that Sterling has. That's a guy who can finish it in the first if you leave a leg out there for him. That's a guy who can finish you in the second if you're dumb enough to give him a look at your back, right?
Yeah.
You know what's weird, though, about Aljamain Sterling? And maybe this is affecting the line. I don't know. So he has 3 losses. Marlon Moraes knocked him out in 2017. Rafael Sunsao, he lost a decision to in 2017. And then he lost a decision to Brian Caraway in 2016.
Yep.
Brian Caraway, who I believe is the ex-husband of Miesha Tate.
You'd be correct.
Whose biggest accomplishment, I think, was riding Miesha Tate's coattails into some screen time on The Ultimate Fighter.
Hey, don't knock that. That's still an accomplishment.
It's still an accomplishment. As a man who's riding a woman's coattails, I will tell you, there's no shame in that game. Facts. That being said, that was, I think, Brian Caraway's biggest accomplishment. Obviously, then we have to acknowledge the fact that Aljamain Sterling is undefeated since 2017. That's 5 years undefeated with some funky submission wins in there. I think that line is ridiculous. I really do.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's come a long way since 2016. But if you told me 2-3 years ago that Aljamain Sterling would be a plus 350 on the verge of plus 400 in any fight, I would be like, you're crazy, and I'm going to take those odds no matter who he's fighting. I don't know if that's going to be the case here because Petr Yan is really that good. This is a fight I'm probably going to look to stay away from, but I think it's going to be fireworks. I don't think it's going to get finished early, but you know what I mean? You're right. They call him the human backpack for a reason because his grappling is really sneaky. It's really good. But Petr Yan's one guy who, he might be able to counter that. And I'm gonna stay off this one, but I really enjoy it. I really can't wait to tune in and see who gets the belt. But there's no pick for me.
Yeah, and if you said that for every fight on the main card, I think it would be fair, right? Every fight on the main card is just a crackerjack fireworks. I don't know where it's gonna go fight, right? If Korean Zombie comes out throwing them haymakers and dusts Alexander Volkanovsky, I'll one, be thrilled, and two, not be surprised. If Jermain Sterling comes out and attaches himself to Petr Yan and chokes him out in the first, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm not, I think Petr Yan clearly pulled away with it, but if Sterling comes out and shows some funky grappling, I'm not surprised. And that's how I feel about every fight. Who's next in this crackerjack? Because we've got two that are already having me on life support. Who's next?
Yeah, it's crazier to say this, but this is definitely the fight I'm looking forward to the most on the entire card. And we're going to go down to the Khamzat hype train Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns.
Jorginho.
I actually booked my UFC Jacksonville tickets and everything before this fight was announced. And after that fight got announced, I was like, oh my goodness, I struck gold because, Khamzat's, a lot of people say, is the next big thing. He trains in All Stars MMA in Sweden with an absolutely stacked camp. Alexander Gustafsson, Alir Latifi, some just absolute killers in the UFC. I'm a Khamzat believer. I think he's the real deal here. Gilbert Burns is a legit guy. He is a legit guy. Probably the first legit guy that Khamzat is going to be facing in his UFC career.
That was my first talking point.
Yeah.
Right. Is where does that leave us with MMA math? Because you're looking at Khamzat Chimaev, 10-0, never lost a fight, is just a knockout and sub machine, right? If he can't submit you, he will knock you out. But last three fights, submitted Jiailang Li, nailed it. Knocked out Gerald Mearshart, knocked out TKO'd McKee. Yep. So where are those guys at? Because they are, I don't know, other than maybe Mearshart, I don't know that we're looking at legit guys in his last three fights.
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I think Jianglong Li, the leech, the Chinese leech, is a very good prospect, a really good fighter. But you're talking about a guy in Khamzat Chimaev who's a gold freestyle wrestling champion. Yeah. And he exploited, something in Lee's game that, when you get inside the top 10 of the UFC, you have to be very well rounded. And Chimaev crosses every single box. He is fighting lower end barrel guys, but listen to this stat. In his first four fights, his strike differential was 254-2.
Ouch.
So my man is landing 254 shots, and he's been hit a total of 2 times. One significant strike was counted and one normal strike. So the guy's been hit 2 times over the course of 4 fights. So, I mean, he is beating on lower guys, but I mean, he's doing it with passing with flying colors. Now we'll get into Burns here. Burns has some decent wins. One thing I do want to mention, he's 35 years old. He used to fight at lightweight, and he's going up. He's fighting it up at 170 now. Okay. Chimaev is a guy who could make 185 right now. Okay. So you're talking about a guy who is going to be way bigger. He's 27 years old. Burns is 35. I did not think Gilbert was that old. But he has wins over Stephen Thompson, Tyron Woodley, Damian Maia. His last loss, he was knocked out by the champ, Kamaru Usman, in the 3rd round. And he did have success early. He did clip Usman, and there was a moment there where Usman was on Bambi legs. He has a loss to Dan Hooker at 155. That's not a good look.
Knockout loss.
Yeah, a nasty knee up the middle. I remember that one. That was vicious.
That was 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
I mean, 2 losses in 4 years is also nothing to sneeze at. He's got Hooker and he's got Usman. That's his 2 losses in 4 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I don't know how much stock I really have in his wins though, either. I mean, he beat Woodley, who right now, I mean, how much faith do we have in Woodley? I think he went out on like what, like a 5-6 fight losing streak to end his UFC career,
and then got knocked out by
Jake Paul of all people. So I mean, how much stock you want to put into Tyron Woodley win? I'm not really sure. Stephen Thompson, he did beat, he grappled him, but it wasn't like anything super impressive. Like he just, he point fought and he snuck the round out and he won that fight. Do you have a prediction after giving those two absolutely insane lines from the first two previous fights, what you think that this one could be lined at?
I'm going to say the favorite is Chimaev, and I'm going to say the line, I don't know, I'm going to stay insane at plus 500.
Yeah, so Chimaev's minus 560, minus 555.
Wow. So I was right.
Yeah, so you're pretty much on the money there. And Gilbert Burns is plus 380. So a very similar line to the Peter Yan Aljamain Sterling fight. For this fight, I definitely have a lean. Don't get me wrong, Gilbert Burns has power. We saw him clip Usman. He did it to the best in the world, so he could do it to anybody. But if Khamzat is what people are saying he is, I think he's going to make this look easy. I think he can get it done any way he wants. Instead of touching that minus 550, I saw that he was plus 150. So you're getting plus money for him to get a knockout.
Interesting.
That would be my play here. If you want to ride the Khamzat hype train, take the KO, you'll get plus 150. You're not going to do anything with minus 560 unless, you want a parlay piece or something like that. But yeah, I think full steam ahead with Khamzat Chimaev here. I think he's going to beat Burns and he's going to do it, pretty amazingly. And I think after this, the sky is the limit with him. He could even get an immediate title shot. He's that big of a draw. He has that much hype. I hope, I'm rooting for him. I hope he is the new bloodline for the UFC right now. I really do.
Well, I got to tell you, I agree with you. I think he's gonna make easy work of Durinho. Just if for no other reason than their ships passing in the night. At 35 years old, Gilbert Burns is obviously looking at the tail end of an MMA career, not the beginning of one. And a guy like Chimaev is just so obviously hungry to get in there and fight. I don't know if you saw at the presser, Chimaev called Gilbert Burns a crybaby and said he was going to make light work of him. So clearly he has a prediction. He's feeling good going into this.
Yeah, I mean, he's been calling everybody a crybaby. He was calling Kobe Covington a crybaby. If he ends up getting that matchup, Covington would call the police before he ever stepped in the ring with Khamzat.
Immediate police call.
Yeah, so he has his eyes, set on, bigger goals ahead. I mean, I would not take Burns lightly, though. I mean, Burns is,
he's a legit guy.
Yeah, he's been in there with the best of them.
There we go. Jay.
But 35 years old, I think the trajectory on his career probably is going down, especially after this fight. Yeah, I think Khamzat rolls here. I would take him as a parlay piece. I'm going to bet the plus 150, and I'm on Khamzat here. I don't know if he's going to be the porch bet because there's one fight that I've really got my eye on.
Okay.
But yeah, I like him plus 150. That's my lean for this fight.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, let's keep rolling then, because right on the heels of it, we got a 115 crackerjack between Mackenzie Dern and Tisha Torres.
Okay. All right, let's just get into it. This is going to be my porch bet.
This is it. And can I take a guess of who you're leaning towards?
I was just going to ask.
I think you're leaning towards Mackenzie Dern.
You would be wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My porch bet, I will never give out picks on here that are like very wide odds. I'm not going to give you like a minus 300 guy and be like, I think he's going to win, because there's just no value in that. This is a fight where Torres opened up at like minus. Well, I'll ask you, who do you think's the favorite?
Mackenzie Dern has got to be the favorite.
Well, the line opened up with Tisha at minus 140, minus 150 as the favorite, and the general public has steamed the line down to Mackenzie Dern, where now she's the slight favorite, minus 120, and Tisha Torres can be had for minus 110. I love Torres in this spot. Absolutely love Tisha Torres in this spot. She's fighting a girl who she's going to be faster than. She's going to land way more on the feet. Dern has virtually no takedown arsenal whatsoever. She's shown that in her last fights. I know she's the, IBJJF Brazilian, world champion a couple years going. Obviously, if she gets this fight to the ground, Torres will be in, there'll be issues, but I don't think it's going to get to the ground. I think Torres is going to win this fight 30-27, and I'm going to bet her at minus 110, and I'm also going to bet her at plus 150 Tisha Torres by decision.
Interesting.
Yep, that's the bet of the card. Bet of the card for me.
So listen, these two women have one thing in common, and that is that they have both lost fights to Mariana Rodriguez. Mackenzie Dern's last fight, I believe, was a loss to Mariana Rodriguez. And then Tisha Torres ended a 4-fight losing streak by losing a decision to Mariana Rodriguez. Before the Rodriguez fight, Mackenzie Dern was on a 4-fight win streak, with 3 of those wins coming by submission, and 7 of her 11 wins have come by submission.
Yep.
Before the Mariana Rodriguez loss, which was last year, her last loss was a decision to Amanda Ribas. And then you jump over Tisha Torres, 13. So Mackenzie Dern is 11-2, 29 years old. Tisha Torres, 32 years old, 13-5. She won a decision over Angela Hill, won a decision over Sam Hughes, won a TKO over Sam Hughes. Brianna Fortino won by decision. And then before that was on a 4-fight skid. Now, and I know what you're going to say, 3 of those 4 fights were to 3 of the best female fighters in the world. That's Weili Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and then I believe Jessica Andrade, all of whom picked up decision wins over Tisha Torres. I don't know. I got to tell you, I think Tisha Torres is the 115 gatekeeper. You can't really be super in the conversation if you can't beat Tisha Torres, right? And we see that, obviously Brianna Fortino, Sam Hughes, and Angela Hill, all great fighters. None of them are probably in the 115 conversation. But Rodriguez, Weili, Joanna, and Jessica Andrade all won decisions over Tisha Torres. I don't know. I think to have that much of a pedigree, and obviously she is the IBJF, whatever the fucking acronym is. She is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, several years running. She's huge on submissions. Yeah, I don't like betting heavy against a submission fighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. The one thing I'll say is with UFC fights in particular, it's styles, that make fights. Okay, and
I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, it's a well-known thing. And Mackenzie Dern is, a phenomenal grappler. You can make the argument she's the best grappler in the women's entire weight class, top to bottom. That her accolades definitely, speak for themselves, and she definitely deserves those credentials. But you're talking about a girl in Tisha Torres who's never been submitted in her entire career. She's never been submitted. We just went over the girls that she's fought. None of them are really submission artists, but she's been in there with the best of the best. I don't think Dern's submitted girls who aren't very good. I don't think her resume is great. The first legit girl she really fought was Marina Rodriguez, and she lost. That was over the course of 5 rounds too, I believe. I believe that was a main event. And she couldn't submit her over the course of 5 rounds. I I don't know. I don't think Torres is going to be privy to just lay down and to guard. And I don't see Dern taking her down. I think she's going to keep distance, and I think she's going to outpoint her. I think the matchup is just strongly in her favor. Is it possible that they fall on the ground and she gets hooks in and locks in a submission? Yes. But at these odds, I definitely see a path to victory for Torres. And that's going to be my porch play this week.
Listen, I would never, John Boy, I never like to disagree with you. I don't know. I mean, Tisha Torres is such a decision fighter. So I certainly see her path to victory there. And obviously Dern has lost 2 decisions. Those are her 2 losses were decisions. I don't know though. It only takes one weird clinch. It only takes 1 second. I mean, Damian Maia made a career off of being a submission fighter, right? That was Damian Maia's whole shtick. And once he figured that out and was able to capitalize on that, I mean, I see Mackenzie Dern with the same potential that I saw in Damian Maia, right? Once you figure out how to put people in these awkward, weird positions where you're not necessarily taking them down, you're not necessarily throwing big takedowns, you're just putting them in awkward positions where they can't move and you're sucking them into quicksand like that. That's what I see in Mackenzie Dern the potential to do. And against a big decision fighter like this, you're just leaving her open. If you're not going out there throwing them haymakers, which, I mean, Tisha Torres does have a TKO over Sam Hughes, but other than that, it's all decisions all day for her. I don't know.
The more and more you talk about it, the more and more I like it, honestly. You're right. She's not throwing haymakers. She's not putting herself in those dangerous positions to where she can be countered. She's going to land shots at a high volume and keep distance. She's made a career out of doing that. You do make a good point that guys like Damian Maia have made a career of just tangling you up, getting you in one position, and then they're just levels and levels ahead of you on the ground. But I think that stops at a certain degree. And I think Tisha Torres is going to have the fight acumen, the coaching staff. She's been there. I've been following her on social media. She looks ready. She looks game for this fight. So I'm team tornado this week, man. I really am.
Well, listen, I guess we're going to see. Let me throw something at you here.
Yeah.
Do we want to have the first gentleman's 10-8 wager? You want to put a 20 spot right in the middle?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll take Dern. You want to take Torres? That's it. You heard it here first. An official 10-8 gentleman's wager is on the books.
Let's go.
Now, the last fight for my heart, the last fight on the main card, we got Vince from Hell Pichel taking on Mark Madsen.
Yeah.
My heart, my brother from Denmark, my fellow Dane. Shout out to Viking MMA, Mark Madsen, Olympic silver medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, taking on Vince Pichel. Let me first say I am confused as to why the UFC has decided to put the geriatric division on full display here. But we have a 39-year-old and a 37-year-old man stepping into the cage as the curtain jerker on the main card here. So that's my first thought. My second thought is I'm a huge Mark Madsen fan. He is a wrestler out of Denmark. He is a talented wrestler out of Denmark. Do you notice that both of these guys seem to have odd gaps in their career from like 2013 to 2018?
I didn't really look too much into that, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't take Vince from Hell Pichel as an extremely active fighter. But with that being said, Vince Pichel he's been good to me in the past from a betting perspective as a dog, and he's come through for me. So, I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for him. Madsen's a tough guy. He's a wrestler, very gritty. He's going to grind you out over the course of 3 rounds. I think I heard these two guys, or Madsen said that this is the 2 most physically strong fighters in the division. I don't know if I agree with that statement, perhaps. I mean,
John, you froze. You froze.
I froze.
Let's pull it up here.
You froze on me. Are you back?
You're back, but there we go. All right, I can hear you.
I'm back.
There we go. You're back.
All right. We apologize for the technical difficulties.
Listen,
we don't
know
what
happens when that's what happens when you work without a net like we do. All right. We don't play it safe here on the 10-8 round. We get at it. We're not working with a net. We don't do safety on this podcast. So sometimes that shit's gonna happen.
No, for sure.
We're back. We're back. And when you put this recording up there, people will get to enjoy this odd moment of my confused face and me going, John, are you there? John, and they'll have a chuckle. That's what we do.
Yep.
It's not all serious here. You cut off. Mark Madsen had said what about this fight? Pick it up from there.
Madsen made some claim that these were the two strongest fighters in their division. You leaned up to the camera and said that it was frozen. I thought it was in reference to that statement that he made because of how outlandish that seems to be. But like you said, these are two old guys. I don't see them really, making a push for the title run here. I'm confused as why this is the opener for the main card. It's a bit odd. But one thing I will say is I like Vince Pichel. I'm probably I might take a little stab and back him here. Do you have an idea of who you think would be a favorite in this spot?
Well, let's see. Let's really break down the MMA math here.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Pichel, 14-2, 39 years old.
Yeah.
Mark Madsen, 11-0, 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
These gentlemen have one thing in common, and that is a decision victory over Austin Hubbard. Vince Pichel also has a decision victory over Jim Miller, a decision victory over Roosevelt Roberts, who at the time, Roosevelt Roberts was being touted a little bit by some people who knew some things about some things. There were some people who were high on Roosevelt Roberts. Mark Madsen has a win over another geriatric in Clay Guida. He has a decision victory over him.
Mm-hmm.
Clay Guida, if you told me he was a Highlander, I would believe you, because I have no concept of how old he is. He's either 39 or 107 years old.
Yeah.
I saw Clay Guida grapple at Fury Grappling in December. My man came out in a wrestling singlet and grappled successfully. He won. It was the most bizarre thing I could have possibly seen to end the year 2021. Now, Vince Pichel does have a loss over Gregor Gillespie, another wrestler, and he also has a knockout loss from Rustamin Kabilov. Nailed it. That was from 2012. That's how far back I had to go in Vince Pichel's history. Because seriously, these guys they have a gap from like 2013 to 2018 where neither of them fought in the UFC. I know Mark Madsen was forced to not fight because he was technically getting a salary from the Denmark Wrestling Association. And once he retired from Denmark's wrestling team, he was allowed to fight again. I don't know what Vince Pichel had going on, but they have this odd gap. Weighing all of that out, seeing that Vince Pichel has lost to wrestlers before, I would pick Mark Madsen as the favorite.
Okay. Yeah. You're wrong.
Okay.
Vince Pichel is the favorite, but you're not wrong by much. It's pretty much an even bout. Pichel's, but hey, I mean that with that assessment, you might have a Mark Madsen bet on your hands. You might have a Mark Madsen, Zach Boy, even money bet on your hands.
That's what my heart says.
That's I don't think that's, I've seen way worse bets than that. So Mark Madsen, even money, Vince Pichel minus 130. The more that you went into this fight, a light bulb went off in my head that I think that this is going to be I think you're going to go over 2.5 rounds. I think that's the bet for this fight. I don't see either of these guys finishing one another. I think that it's going to be holding one guy up against the fence and basically be a war of attrition to see really who can weather the storm. Vince Pichel's been good to me. I actually bet him when he fought Roosevelt Roberts, who's a huge underdog. So he's cashed some tickets for me in the past. I think I stated that earlier. I don't know if I went out for that segment, but I like Pichel here. I don't love it. If I had to bet it, gun to my head, I'm going to go with Vince Pichel. But I wouldn't hate Mark Madsen at even money. I'd be curious to see what they look like in weigh-ins and, take it from there.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And it's hard for me. Look, it's hard for me to disagree, right? Vince Pichel is obviously just a tough dude more than anything. I think you'd have to be tough to be 39 years old and stepping in and still doing this. But, neither one of these guys, I think, is edging themselves out in the toughness factor, that it factor. Mm-hmm. They're both tough as all hell. So for me, it comes down to who do I think can exploit an opening. I think Madsen's wrestling may just carry the day, especially given the submission loss that Pichel has to Gregor Gillespie, the fisherman from Long Island. So that being said, you're right. Maybe you do. Maybe the Filthy Philly bet is going to Denmark this week. Maybe that's where we're putting our money down. Viking MMA. I say Skull Madsen.
Okay.
That being said,
I hate it.
Do we have any? We're done with the main card. That's it. That's top to bottom. That's excitement level that has not been seen since the first time you had Baja Blast at Taco Bell, right? This is the excitement level that hasn't been seen since Friday nights at Blockbuster when you got an A on your report card. That's the excitement level we're dealing with on the main card here. Are there prelim fights you want to get into?
There are, I guess there are 3 fights, but 2 that I want to touch on just from a betting perspective.
Hit me.
And I'm going to go with Tisha Torres's partner. I'm going to do the partner parlay here.
Woo.
Raquel Pennington, Tisha Torres, power couple parlay together plus 200. Raquel Pennington versus Aspen Ladd. I'll make it a long story short. Pennington has fought the better fighters. She's seen fighters like Ladd before. I think she has an answer for everything that Ladd has. I don't think Ladd has that much really to put her in danger. Raquel Pennington can be had for minus 185. Parlay with Tisha Torres plus 200. Power couple parlay, lock it in.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and from what I've seen, I can't think of a moment where I would not bet against Aspen Ladd. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a single moment that I would spend United States currency putting it towards Aspen Ladd winning a fight. I have no faith in Aspen Ladd. So I am with you. I think Rocky Pennington is a far better bet there.
Yeah, no, she has a somewhat solid grappling department where she can wrestle, and if she gets you on the ground, she shows some good ground and pound. But I don't think that's going to be an issue for Pennington. So I'm rolling Pennington here, and then the next fight I wanted to touch on will be Marcin Tybura and Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
That should be a good one.
Yeah, that's a good fight at heavyweight.
I'm surprised that's not the curtain jerker, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, that should be on the main card. I like that fight a lot. I mean, you're talking about a guy in Marcin Tybura who was the weigh-in alternate for the UFC London card. So,
yes,
Tom Aspinall misses weight or, Volkov gets whatever it may be. He's headlining a card in London and they're throwing him on the prelims. But with that being said, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Suriname kickboxer. He's got a record of 76 wins in kickboxing with 64 knockouts. He has 12 wins in the UFC. 11 of them are knockouts. So you're talking about a guy that has put 75 men unconscious, which is absolutely disturbing to think about that he's done that to so many people. He sits at minus 155 against Tybura. This is your prototypical wrestler versus striker matchup. I'm going to take the under 1.5 rounds. I think that this gets finished early, and I'm going to take Jairzinho Rozenstruik by knockout. And the odds on that are, I believe, what are they? I'm going to do minus 150 money line and then the KO prop, which I believe is plus money for Rozenstruik. So that's another bet that I like going into the prelims to set you up for a little bit more money for the main card.
Okay.
Yep.
I like it. So that's 2 fights. What's your third?
And then the last one that I'll touch on, who is also a pretty big prospect that hasn't really gotten a lot of media coverage just because of how absolutely stacked this card is Ian Gary. He's fighting Darian Weeks, who I don't know too much about. I know he lost his last fight to Brian Barberena, which isn't really a great look. So I think the UFC knows what it's doing here. They have a rising prospect in Ian Gary versus Darian Weeks. I like Gary here. He's minus 365, which is a bit steep, but based on Weeks' last performance, I'm going to go with Ian Gary as a parlay piece where you can kind of plug him in at your will to juice things up a little bit. I like Ian Gary a lot. Well,
look, let's not discount fighting noted legit guy Brian Barberena, right? I mean, that's as tough as they come here. And Brian Barberena coming fresh off a victory over another geriatric, the immortal Matt Brown, who may actually again be immortal. No concept of how old he is, but that does transition us into you want to do a little dance? You want to touch on a recap for the fight night UFC Columbus?
Yeah, absolutely. We can roll into that, see where we went wrong, what went right. And
well, let's do this first. Let's not get ahead of ourselves because the excitement's getting us out here. I need your big dog bet and I need one for the pups. What do you like?
All right. So my porch bet, I'm going to go with Tisha Torres minus 110. That's my safe bet. That's my bet. It's even money. So there's money to be made. There's money to be had. My Woods bet, if you're feeling a little bit wild and, you're trying to, really capitalize, I would do the power couple parlay, add Ian Gary, add Khamzat Chimaev, and add Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So you're talking
a
power couple, Rozenstruik, Chimaev, Gary. You're talking a 5-fight parlay. I don't know the odds on that, but I'm assuming it's probably close to like plus 1,000, maybe 10 to 1. So for every dollar you lay, you're getting $10 back. That would be my Woods bet. I think that could definitely cash, and there's a lot of juice to be had there.
Heavy duty. That's a heavy duty bet.
Yeah.
Right. So guys, before you decide to get out in the woods, make sure you're stretching. All right. I scare because I care. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're loosening up the quads and the hammies, because that's a lot of weight to carry in the woods. That's a big boy bet.
Yeah.
Let's use that momentum to transition into what had to be the most disappointing fight card anyone's ever watched. And that is, of course, UFC Fight Night Columbus, where the MMA karma of the universe couldn't even give us a Matt Brown victory. There's one positive takeaway, and that is that Jay Shore was sure. I believe a few of your bets hit.
Yeah. So the couch bet, the infamous couch bet that I don't know if we're putting to rest after our new segment here. That was really the first couch bet I was firm on. I did make that clear in the pod. I was on my boy, the Bone Crusher. He took a win. He was plus 135, Mark Diakese, and he passed the test in flying colors, 30-27, cashed a nice underdog ticket for you. And yeah, no, I love you, Mark Diakese. Way to come through and cash it for the 10-8 pod. Everybody who was on that, let's go. I was on Matt Brown. I did like Matt Brown. It was a split decision that, let's be honest here. Let's flip a coin on that one. That could have went either way. I thought it was a very, very tight fight. It was a good fight though. I did enjoy it. They those two guys always leave it in there. It was an enjoyable fight. I thought it could have went either way, but I'm not mad at the decision anyway.
Well, so there's two positive takeaways that I have from UFC Columbus fight night. One, we got a little legitimacy for J-Shirt picks in the Bone Crusher there, and I love to see that, obviously, as a part-time investor. Two, Matt Brown raised a really interesting question in MMA that's sort of been kicked around for a little while, which is, why is it not open scoring? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with Matt Brown. I think that, it could be an integral part to the UFC to add open scoring, to after the round acknowledge who is in the lead. I understand the counter arguments like, oh, well, you should be fighting your hardest the entire time. That shouldn't matter. You should be laying it all out there. But the judges aren't notorious for, getting the result right. So, more information, more power. I think that the fighters should know if they're down, in between rounds. I think that it'll add a little bit more excitement, honestly. Yeah, I like it from every perspective. I honestly, besides that one counterpoint that I said earlier, I really can't find a downside with it. I think the UFC needs to get with the times. I don't know if that's on the UFC. The athletic commission in each state needs to, send that in and get that approved. I'm all for open scoring.
Let me say this, and I'll try to keep the rant here within the bounds of decency. Number one, to your first, your first and only counterpoint against it, saying that somebody should be fighting their hardest at all times, I think it's a bad point, because they're not going to, right? I mean, you have a sport in MMA that is unique to any other sport, even its counterparts, right? Like boxing or traditional grappling events. It is unique in the sense that you can have somebody out there who's going to throw a double leg takedown, and if they throw it and mistime it, they're going to get their shit rocked and they're going to be staring up at ceiling lights. So if you're a through and through true-blooded American wrestler, you're not going to be doing that the whole time. You're going to be waiting for your moment to do it, to showcase your stuff. If you're stepping up for the first time, fighting a 5-round fight, you probably or maybe are not going to go out and throw everything but the kitchen sink into round 1, because you don't know how your cardio is going to be then in round 4. So to say that you should be fighting your hardest every single round is naive on anybody who would raise that as an argument against open scoring. That's not how the world works. Nobody in any sport does that. And in a sport as unique as MMA, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And I think your coaches would probably advise against it. 2, how many times have we sat watching a UFC fight card to listen to both corners tell their fighter, either you're ahead on points or you're behind on points, you have to do this. So why wouldn't we just legitimize it and have the judges do it? And 3, and you and I spoke about this the last time the UFC went to London, there are certain regions that are notorious for bad judging. God forbid Adelaide Bird is involved. We already know we're going to be looking at a bizarre scorecard to begin with. Why not let these fighters know? Why not give them the opportunity to adjust the game plan? Because that's what MMA is, right? It is taking a true hodgepodge, a true melting pot of martial arts, grappling, striking, and anything that could cover any ground in between those two set goalposts, and throwing 2 guys in a cage or 2 women in a cage to see who can do it better. Well, wouldn't it be the most MMA thing to tell people as they're going along, you're ahead or you're behind, so they could adjust their game plan appropriately?
Yeah.
Right. How does that not contemplate an evolution in the sport? And look, I don't know anybody who works for Verdict MMA. I don't know if you do. They're not friends of the 10-8, but those guys are out there pushing for open scoring for this reason. Because if you look at the verdict cards and you look at the actual scorecards, I got to tell you, it's disheartening how often they are far apart on each other. I think open scoring is the next step to legitimacy. I think it would make MMA more unique. I think it would bring more fans into the sport, and it would make fights more exciting. I see zero downside to this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, there isn't any sport out there where at the end of the game they go, okay, we're going to find out who the winner is. Everybody knows who's in the lead and who's behind. In every other sport imaginable, that's the case, except in MMA. Also, to the fact is, there's a very thin line between fighting smart and fighting hard. So, this is these guys' paychecks at the end of the day. And you're going to leave it up to a flip of a coin and the chance of, already a crappy reputation of past judges, and judges are notorious for fucking this thing up. So to leave it in their hands and take the power out of the fighter's corner, I don't agree with it. It's beyond me. I think it's time for the UFC to grow up here. I think that's old fashioned. Open scoring, hands down. I'm all for it.
Exactly. The Philadelphia 76ers aren't waiting until 5 minutes after the fourth quarter to find out if they won the game.
Yeah.
They know, right? Football, baseball, nobody's finding out at the end of the game whether or not you won. The only comparison for this closed universe of scoring is probably boxing, because they're not telling boxers whether you're ahead or behind. And to that, I say, there are scores of books. There are encyclopedias about the history of fucking up judging in boxing, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It is one of the most corrupt sports for that reason. It has a history of corruption. And if MMA wants to separate itself and be the exciting combat sport, open up those fucking scorecards and let's see what's going on. Let's give these guys an opportunity to respond in real time, right? Tom Brady is not waiting until the fourth quarter to change his game plan. If he's getting smoked in the second, he's going to adjust and he's going to play a different game of football. Well, so too, maybe is Jermain Sterling when he finds out that he won the first two but lost the third, right?
Yeah.
I digress. I could go on all night. I think it's ridiculous that this does not exist in the sport. But I think that was the most positive thing to come out of USC Columbus, was that Matt Brown asked the question, the age-old question, why in God's name is open scorecard not a thing?
Yeah, no, it seems kind of absurd at this point that's not installed. As a betting degenerate, the first thing that comes to my mind is, how would this affect live betting? Because I've seen some absolutely outrageous live betting lines where, you don't know who's winning, and all of a sudden a guy like swells to -500, and you're like, wait a minute, if you're watching this fight, how is that even possible? So, that would be interesting to see how that would affect the live betting market. But, there's nothing else to add. It's a no-brainer, and it should have been established a long time ago.
Well, John, before we get out of here for the week, let's take a little time. Let's take a little stroll down the MMA news newscopter here, eye in the sky. First, let's say this. There is a reason that the 10-8 podcast gives you a disclaimer. And that reason is this: MMA does not always attract the most stable people, whether as fans or competitors. And nothing could be more true than the American gangster, the bad boy from Lynn, Oregon, Chael P. Sonnen, who we did 2 weeks ago lend our support to with a disclaimer. In those 2 weeks, Chael Sonnen has had his felonies downgraded to misdemeanors, which is encouraging. He also came out publicly and stated he was under the influence of Ambien and does not remember anything. And it turns out he may not have actually been defending his wife and may have assaulted a woman or two in the process. So I just want to say, this is why the 10-8 will always give you a disclaimer before we take the side of a fighter. You just don't know what's going to come out in the wash. That's where we are with Chael P right now. We, of course, wish him the best with his legal troubles. But our support may have been tempered just a little bit in the last 2 weeks. Just a little bit. Other than that, I don't know if you have your phone next to you, but best friend of the pod, Mike from the Bronx, did send us an article where Paulo Costa is claiming that Vitor Belfort is his biological father.
Wow.
So I haven't clicked on the article. I don't know if this is clickbait. I don't know if
is this MMA press or whatever? I don't know. I got to check that out.
You got to check it. Let's see here.
Paulo Costa is known for saying some outrageous off the cuff stuff. So,
this is on bjpenn.com, which is not a satire site. It's not technically a satire site. I don't know that it is the premier example of MMA journalism either. But yeah, Paulo Costa claims UFC legend Vitor Belfort is his biological father. Quote, now everyone knows. Which I guess then raises the question, can you actually pass TRT in vitro? Or any of the other illegal substances that Vitor Belfort was on that Paulo Costa may also be on. So that raises some interesting biological questions.
Yeah, that would be probably as outrageous as that sounds, that would probably be the most logical thing that you could maybe draw that comparison, that maybe those, performance enhancing drugs were, distributed down to Costa. I don't know how much stock I have in anything that comes out of Paulo Costa's mouth. Although I did hear he might be fighting Luke Rockhold, which would be interesting. But
I don't know that I need to see that.
That's fair.
I really don't know that I need to see that. Well, we got McGregor and Usman chirping each other on Twitter. Another thing I really don't need to see.
Yeah.
There are so many people for Kamaru Usman to fight. There are so many good fights to make and so many fights that I think people deserve and make sense. I don't know that I need to see him fight McGregor right now.
I'll make a bold prediction. If Hamzat steamrolls Burns, which I think he is going to this weekend, I think they might match him up with Usman right away.
Which I'd like to see.
And I think Hamzat rolls Usman as well.
Ooh, that's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
That's a bold prediction because that would put Hamzat squarely in the conversation for pound best fighter in the world.
Yeah, no, I think he does. I think that one thing I want to see with Hamzat, which we haven't been able to, is kind of the gas tank. I heard that his gas tank is incredible, though. I heard his cardio is unmatched. I'd like to see him kind of get out of the first or second round. But I mean, if he's just going to keep steamrolling guys, I don't know. I could see him doing it to Usman. I feel like Usman, we've seen the best of Usman, and I don't know. I want to see something fresh. I want to see something new.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree. My less bold prediction is that Hamzat would starch McGregor.
Oh, stop it.
Just absolutely starch him.
Yeah, I mean, McGregor should not be calling out. He tweeted triple weight champion, so he's going for the 170 pound belt. That's not a good division for him to go to. There are a lot of guys in that division. Like an absolute nightmare matchup for him would be like Kobe Covington, with just
get wrestle fucked,
just like a grueling pace, like similar to like a Khabib style where they just absolutely overwhelm you. So yeah, 170. McGregor, go back down to 155.
Seriously,
and
there's fun ones to make there. That's a fun division.
Let's see you fight Tony Ferguson or Michael Chandler or Gaethje. Shit, I'd even watch you fight Oliveira. Like,
why not?
Yeah,
I'll watch any one of those. But my brother in Christ, you are 1-1 with Nate Diaz.
Yeah,
And listen, this is a War Diaz podcast, whether you know it or not. This is a War Diaz podcast. That being said, you're 1-1 with Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
Hamzat, Usman, Covington. I don't think any of them would struggle with McGregor. I think all three of them would wrestle fuck him for 3 to 5 rounds. And my potential read on Hamzat is that it seems like he may be Khabib, but with the ability to knock you the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that makes him nature's most dangerous apex predator, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, if all checks out this week, watch out for the Hamzat train, man, because
that train is scary.
Yeah, he might be the next big thing. And I hope he is. I really do. I like him. I like what he has to say. I like the little brotherly love that he has with Darren Till. I don't know if you've seen any of that. They're like boys now. I like that.
I like it. It's fun.
I heard Dana White, they might do a reality TV show with those two guys.
All right, take my money.
I'd watch it.
I already pay for Fight Pass and for fucking ESPN Plus. I pay for the fucking Flow Grappling and fucking Flow Wrestling. Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna watch the reality show. Yes, I'm the mark. I'll watch it all. I don't give a shit. Speaking of Flow, though, I did want to mention for anybody here who's looking to deepen and widen their base of knowledge and appreciation for the sport, I think Flow Wrestling is dropping a documentary about Gregor Gillespie, who was an NCAA champion wrestler. You might know Gregor from the UFC. In between those two periods in his life, struggled deeply with addiction issues, and is sort of a redemption story. So keep your eye out for that. I think that could be fun and interesting to check out. And also, if anybody else is looking to learn a little history of the sport for a feel-good story, watch the Bisping documentary. And John Boy, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to check that out yet. I won't ruin it. No spoilies. But the fact that Michael Bisping was allowed to fight at the tail end of his career is borderline criminal.
Yeah, no,
that's all I'll say.
Yeah, no, I got some briefing of that when he was on Rogan. I did listen to the Rogan podcast where he does go into detail some of the stories between Jason Perillo and him trying to pass doctor exams leading up to fights. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that would be worth tuning into to see, an incredible level of perseverance. If I ever complain about something, that guy's perseverance was absolutely insane to do some of the stuff that he did. But yeah, definitely go check that out.
And I suggest those two things to watch because I have a terrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that we are going to be subject soon to another Paul brother boxing event. I believe you mentioned earlier, one of the Paul brothers has now called out your favorite fighter, Paddy the Baddy.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the Paul strategy, is calling out guys that weigh 60 pounds, 50, 60 pounds less than they do. That might actually be the first fight where I root for Paddy, if that actually does come into fruition. I hope it doesn't. But you never know, man. When I saw Paddy made 10-10 was his paycheck. Did you see that for UFC London?
Is that all he made?
10-10 or 12-12, regardless, it's peanuts. And then he got the bonus. So that's another 50. And then the Barstool endorsement. So, he's making his fair share, but 12-12 is highway robbery. So with numbers like that,
he might have to.
Dude, yeah, he could accept a fight, with Paul. He might as well strike while the iron's hot, because if he faces a guy in the top 15, he is in trouble.
Oh boy. Well, before we get off on that tangent, one of these episodes we are going to have to spend some time and talk about fighter pay, but that night is not tonight. I do want to say for all of you true rabid foaming at the mouth fans of the 10-8 pod, keep your eyes and your ears on the horizon. Sometime this month, we are going to do a special guest episode with Philadelphia fighter Timmy Green, coming off of a win from Art of War last Saturday. Guy looked like a stud in the cage. I have personally been beaten up by Timmy Green a few times, so I am excited to get him on the pod. What do you think, John Boy? Anything else we got to talk about tonight?
I don't know. I think we went over it. I'm just hyped up this fight card, man.
I'm putting out fucking milk and cookies for MMA claws every night. I am trying to keep my MMA karma high. I'm gonna momentarily forget that I will be stuck in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I will feel like I am instead on top of Mount Zions watching this card. And yeah, no, we may have to do one next week where we recap this card depending on how crazy it really is. But in the meantime, this is the 10-8 podcast reminding you to call your mother, tell her you love her, and we will see you soon. We're out of here.
Peace.